Welcome to Experimarketing, the podcast where we innovate, create, and appreciate. Powered by Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson. Here's the host of Experimarketing, Chief Experimarketer, Colin Carasquillo.
What's going on there, fellow Experimarketers? It's Colin Carasquillo, host of the Experimarketing Podcast, powered by the Mostly Automotive Marketing Podcast with Mr. Matt Wilson, who I already see is on the screen. Matt, you jumped on here before I could even introduce you. What's going on?
I didn't want to waste any time, so here I am.
Okay, well, that's great because we don't want to waste any time getting into today's awesome topic. But Matt, I had some inspiration this morning, and I was in the shower. And didn't you say that you find inspiration in the shower too during your shower sessions?
All my ideas come in the shower or when I'm driving is when I have all my great ideas when I cannot write anything down.
There you go. So I was in the shower this morning and I had some inspiration, and I thought, and I said it here before on some previous episodes, what we are in this space is a big family, right? In the automotive space, marketers, advertisers, dealers, vendor partners, we're all one big family. Mm-hmm. And like many families, we're a little dysfunctional, right? Yeah. We have some problems. So you're my marketing brother from another mother. And right, that's pretty good. Yeah. And today, what we're going to talk about are some of those opportunities for improvement, as I'll call them, or the pain points in our dysfunctional automotive family. Okay. And hopefully after today's episode, we can take those problems, come up with some solutions, and we move on like a happy family that we are.
We're solving the world's problems, the automotive world's problems is today. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, listen, we can look at it like that. I would like to think that we can solve a couple problems, but in order to help us do that, we're going to bring on our sister from another mister, a marketing sister from another mister. You see what I did there?
I got it. Yeah.
This is Ilana Shabtay. She is the director of marketing at AutoLeadStar, co-host of the InsideAuto Podcast, which is another great podcast, which not only have I had the privilege of being on, but I listen to regularly. She has awesome people that visit her on the podcast as well. But Ilana, how are you? Oh, wait. And before, wait. Also, an expert panelist on the dealer marketing panel. Thank you to our sponsors at Dealer Marketing Magazine. You can go visit them and see all of Ilana's great work at dealermarketing.com. But now, Ilana, how are you?
I'm great. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. And like I said, we always love the conversation. I know Matt and you have had the privilege of speaking numerous times. You know, we've only spoken a couple times before, but even looking at the article that you wrote for dealer marketing, you know, streamlined metrics, open APIs, in-house marketing. Oh my, like the little play on the Wizard of Oz there. It's very Colin-esque, if you will. But you had asked me for some input, or it actually started as a LinkedIn post. And I said, hey, I'd be happy to give you input because it's a great question that you're asking. Let's talk about it. Before we get into that, tell us, Ilana, what makes you you? Introduce yourself for our listeners out there.
Well, first of all, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it. What makes me me is that I love doing this type of stuff. So this is very much me. But I've been at AutoLeadStar for 6 years, actually, even before we pivoted to automotive. So before that, we were doing basically e-commerce SMB stuff. And I really started my digital career, marketing career there. And before that, I was in the IDF as a shooting instructor, which was pretty cool and does not help my marketing campaigns today. But yeah, so that was really cool. And I got this awesome opportunity to work at 40 Nuggets, which is our company before we became AutoLeadStar, and really learned everything from management and leadership there. And I feel very grateful for that. So in terms of my profession, that's really defined everything that I've known. But outside of work, I really like to bartend. So, as you know, Colin. So
that's right. I know we've had some some interactions or exchanges via email about different cocktail recipes. So yes,
sounds about right.
From everyone out there, us marketers, we do like to unwind with a good cocktail every once in a while.
True.
But not only can you go to Ilana for some great marketing advice, and also with AutoLeadStar. I mean, not that it's a shameless plug, but it is a shameless plug. our automotive group does currently utilize AutoLeadStar for, our SEM, our social display and things like that. And, I would like to consider myself a stickler when it comes to these different, options or vendor partners out there. We've aligned ourselves with you and we are very happy and satisfied with the results that we've gotten. I think that's just a testament to AutoLeadStar, obviously what you're doing with your outreach and things like that, getting all these other marketers and advertisers on your podcast. So awesome. And then hell yeah, mix a strong cocktail. I love it. So let's get into the article, which, like I said, streamlined metrics, open APIs, in-house marketing. Oh my. And tell us, I guess ultimately why you wrote the article. There seems like there's some pain points, right? And I think the point about my whole family analogy or introduction is the way that the family makes itself stronger. If there are some problems within the family bond, is to identify those problems and come up with some potential solutions. So tell us what inspired you to write this article.
Thanks for asking the question. So I used to actually work on the customer success, the dealer experience team at AutoLeadStar, and this was years ago. Mm-hmm. And what I loved about it was I was really in the field. I was talking to clients every single day. And when I pivoted to marketing, I realized that I don't have that touch with clients every single day. Of course, I have, the LinkedIn family and the automotive family that you're referring to. I speak to the same maybe 10, 15 dealers every week. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to start going on to client calls again and just be a fly on the wall. But it's going to help us with our marketing. It's going to help us with our messaging. And I went on a couple of calls. I went on a call with Matt Lasher from West Her, and he said something like, we were 30 days into going live. And he said, like, you know what, it's too difficult for me to be able to really see the impact after 30 days because my previous provider talked about leads differently or measured leads differently. And then I was like, how are we still doing this as an industry? It's 2021 and it can't be like this. So then I went on my LinkedIn rant and was trying to see, do other people in the industry have this challenge? What are other dealers saying? But it was really influenced by listening to client calls and realizing that this is a big challenge in automotive, among others that we spoke about, and some that we didn't even mention in the article. But that's really what inspired the article.
No, I think that's awesome. A lot of the solutions with anything, right? As they say, necessity is the mother of invention. It's the same thing here. With marketing, there are pain points. And that's when organizations like AutoLeadStar or marketers like ourselves go on these shows and we talk about those pain points, but it's in an effort to educate, to teach, to try to bring some sort of uniformity or solution to the problem, if you will. So, you kind of take this approach where you're like, let's talk about this. Let's finally address this problem, which I think to many dealers as well as vendor partners that we would align ourselves with. And as obviously for you guys on the advertiser or vendor partner side of things, it's let's talk about this, let's address it. And one of the things that you ultimately bring up are some pain points, which we had addressed before. But those pain points specifically are the streamlined metrics. So right in your title, open APIs, right? So I had to look up API, and that's application programming interfaces. We love our acronyms in this space. And then ultimately, the decision to do your marketing in-house or to outsource your marketing. So if it's okay with you, what I'd like to do is just really go through these items, have the conversations. I think that this is kind of a very casual conversation that we will have, because I think that's what this, in order for us to fully understand it and address it, it's a casual conversation, So ultimately, let's start with streamlined metrics. And for you, what was the problem that was identified when you were talking in that group with Matt Lasher, who we love, as well as when you had made the post and what people were talking about?
So I think the first issue is that there are certain vendors that are identifying random things as leads. And I'm saying random, obviously that's subjective, so I just want to put that out there. But things like page scrolls, things like VDP views, things that in digital marketing today are not considered leads because leads are not anonymous IDs, right? That's website traffic. So the first problem I think that we have as an industry is not, even before you get to the fact that it's streamlined, is defining them in a fair way so that dealerships don't go and think, wow, we have a 50% conversion rate, which is basically impossible. Of course, you're going to have a 50% conversion rate if you're considering a page scroll or a VDP view a lead. So I think the first thing is be really cognizant of what a lead is and take control of that. And that obviously trickles into later on in the conversation when we talk about having someone own that at the dealership. So I'll save that. But be cognizant of what a lead is and make sure that it's fair. And then the second part, which is really what was the focus of that part of the article, which is, can we as an industry from tier 1 all the way down to tier 3 have streamlined metrics? What is a lead? What is the definition of a lead? Is it in my opinion, it should be a form that is filled out and or a phone call, meaning an identified person from traffic that is then a lead. And then how is that parsed? Is it parsed differently if you're with Urban Science or with all the other providers that tier 1 use in order to bring those leads into the CRM? So being able to really make those definitions, again, from all different tiers, so that it's easy to then not just own your data and look at your data, but compare your data. So month over month, have control over that performance.
I was having a discussion with someone, it might have been Drew, the CMO at Goobagoo, and we were talking about how we need to get a council together who determines the definitions of all these things. I don't know who these people are. It's important people, probably people that are higher up somewhere than we are, or maybe it's us. We just band together and do it.
Let's start the council. Let's do it.
But what's a lead? What's a prospect? What about like a trigger event? You get a trigger alert from, whatever your service, platform is that says this person wrecked their car. Like, okay, is that a lead? Well, no, but does that person deserve a phone call from somebody in the sales department? Well, sure. But like the definition, like laying all those out, all the definitions and saying, okay, everybody, we're making an announcement. This is what these things mean. Everybody follow these directions. But I don't know who the people are who make those decisions. But I think we need to do that though. Seriously.
I do, and I think something else that actually came up on my conversation with Colin when I was doing some research before this piece was that there still needs to be the flexibility of every dealership has a different strategy. And so it's less about dictating what, that your lead has to be like this and you have to have a certain amount of leads. I think it's okay to have that long list of definitions. And then dealerships can say, okay, I'm going to create certain events in Google Analytics that are important to me. So if a page scroll is important, if VDP view is important, which, rightfully so, set up an ecosystem where you can then track that, but don't define it as a lead. So I think it's important to clarify that. I'm not undermining by any means those metrics and those events. And I'm happy you brought up trigger events. I'm thinking in like a technical aspect of trigger events, but I do think it's important. Like, yes, we don't need to ignore those. We just have to say those are separate events, and you should know also how to set those up in Google Analytics, and then you can have control of that data.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like you said, you had mentioned that we spoke before you wrote the article, which is true. And I think the fact that we're even having the conversation and Matt talking about, now him even speaking with Drew Olson from Goobagoo and talking about the fact that there needs to be this council that's set up, which I think that's a great idea. I think one of the things that we ended up addressing was just that it's not that you're ever going to have 100% uniformity or 100% streamlining of what a lead is. But I do think dealers need to be cognizant of some of what I'll call, I guess, the veil that vendor partners or advertisers can put over their eyes, which is essentially, impressions and some of those very high level things. Now, sure, there's value to them depending on the advertising medium that you're going with. But, I say it, and listen, I'm a guy that sits here on the dealer side of things, and I try to be as real as possible with our listeners and with our guests. It could be a tier 1 call where the tier 1 advertisers, I'm not going to say any manufacturers, but the OEMs saying, hey, we started doing some, OTT or connected TV. And ultimately you had for the district over 200,000 impressions with the cost per completed view of 10 cents. I'm just throwing out numbers there. Mm-hmm. And I sit there month in, month out without fail and say, well, then what did that get me though? What did that get me? That is such a high level metric that sure, on your end, it looks like it's this massive, massive number, but when in reality, I mean, what sales could we actually attribute to that? What website traffic could we actually attribute to that? And in most instances, they can't tell you, and that's the thing that I think we need to understand with this whole conversation about streamlined metrics is dealers need to get away from those coffee table metrics, as Matt calls them, right? It's the stuff that looks pretty on the coffee table, right?
Vanity. I call vanity metrics.
There you go. Who called them? Someone called them coffee table metrics, and I like that.
Yeah, no, I just had Bob Lanham talk about this on a podcast, and it was great because he really breaks down the difference between a vanity metric and a metric that matters.
Right.
And that's the type of stuff that we need to educate on. So yeah, let's start this council. I'm expert panelist. I feel like I can qualify.
I think you can too. And for that with the vanity metrics and then metrics that matter, I mean, let's call them that, right? It is important to kind of look at everything. You need to look at everything holistically. And I can almost hear Bob, saying it now, but he says you got to own your marketing. And instead of siloing everything, you need to look at everything from the complete picture, which is how you should ultimately look at your metrics as well. So yeah, you start on that impression level, but then dig deeper. And, that's what we challenge dealers to do. And in our quest for streamlining of metrics, I would agree with you that ultimately any vendor partner should be speaking with a dealer about, like you said, form fills, phone calls, chat, text, any of those things, digital retailing, right? If there's any completed deals, that is the meat and potatoes of what dealers should be looking for in this day and age versus just, hey, driving people to my VDP page. Because guess what? People can go to your VDP page all the time. And I know that's what they say. If people are going to convert on your VDP page, but if they're leaving your website and then you don't have some sort of retargeting or something in place, that person's gone. And ultimately, it doesn't matter that they got to your VDP because there is nothing that they did to make themselves not anonymous, right? I mean, would you agree?
I totally agree, but I still think something that I didn't clarify in the article, so I'm going to take the opportunity now, is that once you set up those steps, like you mentioned, once you set up those, the VDP views, the scroll, the page scrolls, the SRP, all of that, you can then create those correlations so that you can say, okay, what percentage of my VDP views actually turn into leads? And once that metric is streamlined, it then becomes easier to create those correlations and understand what's happening. And yeah, you can't get to 100%, and certainly not in this industry. So these are the steps that can kind of help you get there. But
I think that's very important to understand that maybe there's never going to be this 100% answer, which is kind of what you do talk about in the article. But I think it's very important to have that realization, to accept that, hey, maybe there's never going to be something that's 100%, but at least challenge your vendor partners. And I challenge you guys. I mean, I challenge AutoLeadStar to do this. I would challenge Matt. Should I choose Silverback advertising for any, advertising at some point in time? It would be.
Might get around to it at some point. I've known you for over a year, but whatever.
Yeah, well, I make our people sweat it out, man. They gotta wait.
Whatever.
I always say all good things take time. So there you go. But the point is that, dealers should absolutely challenge their vendor partners to provide that a little lower, as you'd say, lower, higher converting lead, metrics, things like that. So one of the things, though, that I do want to bring up is essentially what I provided to you when we were talking on the phone for the article. And you had mentioned it briefly, but just different strategies. And I think that's very interesting because for me, and like I said, I'm going to be as real as possible on these episodes for our listeners. We have recently acquired 2 new dealerships, one of which was a former store that already existed. And so people knew that store was there. It just came under new ownership, right? So you change the name, you change the website, change some strategy, get customers to be aware of you, so on and so forth. But the other store was a brand new location that we built from the ground up. It's our Mitsubishi point. And I realized through the trials and tribulations of the past couple months that you have to take a different approach for the new store that you're building from the ground up. And what I talked about on that is it's just about getting as much awareness for the dealership and the brand that dealership now exists. And the strategy is actually a little different when you're looking at search or, conquest and so on and so forth, where you're being a little more broad just to drive as much traffic as possible to that site. And listen, this could be wrong. This could be the wrong avenue. There could be advertisers out there. Matt could be saying, what the heck are you doing? You're wasting your money, so on and so forth. But for me, I believe that it's very important to drive that initial flow of traffic to get people to know that your site exists, that your dealership exists, so on and so forth. And then from there, after 3 months or whatever it may be, that seems to be the magic number for us, that then you can start optimizing for those lower funnel metrics, right? So then at that point, I almost would look at impressions. I would look at VDPs. I would say, am I driving all this traffic to my site? And then what is it doing, right?
For sure. And then I would also look at cost, because if you're optimizing for click and traffic, your cost should actually be lower, not in terms of like your set budget, but I mean, you're sending as much traffic as possible. You're not optimizing for those qualified leads ready to buy, low hanging fruit. And so your cost per lead is going to look very different too. So that's something, and of course your strategy needs to align with all of that and make sure that your cost and your budget is optimized based on the.
No, that's really great. Matt, let me ask you, I mean, from Silverback's perspective, are there new stores that you guys, I mean, when you sign on, you kind of take that approach where it's about driving that initial influx of traffic, or is it more so you're always just going to really focus on those, low funnel, nice cost per lead kind of traffic? I don't know. It's just for my own question. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just in a similar situation, like I'll use an example of a client of mine. It's a 2-store. It's a Alfa Romeo Maserati store, and it's a new store. So kind of going through the same thing. They bought it from a group that sold one Maserati every 3 months, and the dealer that bought it is a friend of mine, a good dealer, and he's used to I want volume and I want cars like right now. And I'm like, dude, it's a Maserati store. Like, I'm not sure what your expectation is, but you're not going to sell 30 Maseratis a month. Let's talk about like what you're hoping to get out of it. And we did that.
30 cars. That's what he wants.
He wants 30 cars a month. Yeah. That's what Maserati wants. But we did what you talked about. We looked at it as we have to let people know that the store's here, because the company that owned it was doing no advertising for months because they knew they were selling it. So we need to let them know the store's here, that these brands are here, and then that you own it because the people buying it are a brand in my market. So it wasn't that low funnel stuff, but it's been 6 months. No, it's been 12 months. The honeymoon's over, and now it's very focused on low funnel traffic. I got to sell 5 Maseratis in the next month. But you're totally right. But I wish, and Ilana might agree with me on this one, like I wish that you, Colin, I'm going to blame marketing directors at groups now. I can do it because I used to be one, I wish that we were able to spend more time and budget on that type of high funnel branding, messaging, advertising. And I can't say that now. People go, of course you want that because you're in an agency, but that's not true. I wanted that flexibility before when I was on the dealer side. I wanted that flexibility. Like, dude, let's drop this. Let's use this amount of money for our branding, messaging, stuff that we do, stuff where the vanity metrics are fine. We don't need the attribution for this stuff. But when it comes down to, the dollars and cents, there we go. The dollars and cents, and we're trying to do the I don't want to say bare minimum, but we're counting every dollar and we need to see what we're getting. It ends up being just that low funnel stuff. So with Mitsubishi, you kind of had to backtrack. You said you started and then you're like, oh shoot, we better back up and look at the big picture.
Yeah, I started thinking that this could ultimately be like any of the other dealerships that, we've successfully launched marketing campaigns for that I currently oversee that, right now, given the state of the market, are doing exceptionally well. And even prior to that, moving into COVID, always there's opportunity for improvement, but I would have thought that they were doing well. For this store being a new store, it made me kind of changed my mentality altogether, which was, oh man, instead of being as efficient as we want to be, it almost might behoove us or be beneficial to actually let the reins out a little bit, but don't get too crazy, right? But to drive more traffic to the site initially, then essentially weed out any of the traffic that we now know, depending on sources and all these other things that we can look at through attribution, Google Analytics, whatever it is, that, all right, we shouldn't spend as much money there, or let's reallocate some money to this, or let's stop spending that money altogether. So I think it's just very important for dealers to realize that, because a lot of vendors, marketers are really shoving that low cost, low funnel shopper down their throats. And in reality, the space is so hyper competitive right now. Every dealer is now competing for that same low funnel shopper. It almost might be beneficial to start aiming a little higher up the funnel. But obviously, do your due diligence, dealers out there. I'll kind of give a disclaimer like a financial advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an expert, marketer or strategist when it comes to this. So please do your research and go from there. Okay, now switching gears. Ilana, we want you back here. Open APIs. So application programming interfaces, that's APIs for all you guys and gals out there. Talk to us about that. Walk us through that. So
I'm no technical developer, so I will do my best at walking us through that. So an open API is basically a way for softwares to communicate, and it's very, very streamlined outside of automotive. So outside of automotive, a lot of basically any mainstream software will have an open API where, for example, if I have an email marketing software where I'm sending emails based on certain lists, they'll plug into my CRM so that in real time, based on certain activities that are happening in my CRM, the emails are going to go out and they're going to be personalized and they're going to be targeted, and it's going to be based on that activity in the CRM. That's
like a dream situation basically for marketers.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And the real importance with open APIs is that, one, it just opens up data transparency. So you're able to actually track something from start to finish for the most part. Right. But it also allows you to create a better user experience, because you're able to take data from one place and have it communicate to another software, so that then you're having that really nice user experience for your shoppers. So for example, if you're using, a specific software or vendor partner for your SEM, right? So you're sending traffic to your website, and then on your website, you have a chat, right? A completely different chat. It's working out of an iframe. How is that chat going to know what ad that person came from and then give them a message that person cares about, right? It's not. Right. But with open APIs, that would be very, very possible. Or just having more of like a platform approach in automotive is also another way to solve for that. But I do think open APIs should become more mainstream, because it just opens up so much more opportunity for dealership marketers.
I wonder how we go about getting that done, right? So for us, I mean, we would like to think that the dealer community has a voice. And if you push back to, tier one and all these different outlets, that there might be some sort of reception to that, right? But I think what we're seeing, and I know this was originally, I heard it from Bob Lanham, but about walled gardens. And I had mentioned it, a little earlier, but essentially the walled garden now becomes the whatever outlet you're on, whether it's your dealership website or Google, or the Google My Business, obviously being with Google, that there are these walled gardens because they don't have those open APIs. You essentially have to be on every one of those platforms, and you need to make sure that your messaging, although manually done on those platforms, is then consistent across all of those platforms, even though they don't have that API to have the connected experience. So, I wonder what we can do if part of this council that we're putting together, we can also talk about open APIs, because I agree with you. I think that that's exceptionally important, especially when you start seeing the data about, personalized marketing messages and people interacting or engaging more with personalized marketing. I mean, you look at the, Amazons of the world, you look at all these companies that essentially do just that, and they're very, very successful. I mean, the fact that they have that consistent experience from, let's just say the Amazon.com all the way down to the consumer's inbox, right? It's the same thing from us. If we had that same consistent experience from tier one all the way down through tier three, as well as the consistency across all of our advertising platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Google, so on and so forth, it would be very, very successful for us. So I think that's very good. I think if anything, we just need to, I guess, challenge the dealer community to voice the fact that we want more access to open APIs to have that consistent customer experience, right? I mean, hurrah.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think in this case, it does come from the vendors, because the vendors have to create that.
You guys need to make some noise then. Come on.
I'm making the noise. But yeah, so I do think the vendors, if vendors and softwares within the space just have the open APIs, then developers at the softwares can just grab the open API and create that integration for dealers. So vendors are definitely accountable, and I would expect to see that innovation. The other thing, which is, far off and far-fetched, but what I would like to see is for manufacturer programs to require it. I kind of think of manufacturers as like the government. So like, how the government will, I was just talking about this actually on my podcast earlier today that I was recording. We were talking about EVs and how are we going to get consumer adoption of EVs? And Matt Tedesco from BMW Shift was saying that, the government may start incentivizing tax breaks, whatever it might be, to have that adoption. So the parallel here is like, if manufacturers would say, vendors can only be on our program, obviously it should be performance-based, but do you have an open API? If you have an open API, you can be on the Nissan program. Why? Because that means that everyone on my program has an open API, and it guarantees a better user experience for dealers.
Wow. I don't think that's necessarily far-fetched at all. I just think the only challenge, which is probably what we're currently running into, is the fact that all of those OEMs want to keep all that data for themselves, right? So I mean, with open API, you run the risk of, it's connected across all these different platforms. In reality, that's what the customer's looking for. So if you did what was best by the customer, you're in theory doing best by the OEM, or what's best for you, but they don't see it that way just yet.
But you know what? It's even better for the OEMs, because the OEMs will also have a much better picture of the customer flow. Yeah, customer journey, exactly. So it really, in my mind, it's a win-win. And if we can go in that direction as an industry, I think we can make a huge, huge impact on the way that consumers shop for cars online.
I love it, because I think that's one of the biggest pain points currently, right? Is just that disconnected or disjointed customer experience, whether it's what they start online and then the same experience is not provided in store, right? So there's not that synergy, or ultimately, you see a lot of vocal people out in this day and age out on LinkedIn about one specific OEM forcing a specific digital retailing tool on people, and it's turned out not to be true. And now everyone's up in arms all about it. So I think, ultimately it's about that connected experience, visibility for the dealer, as well as then visibility for the OEM. So I love it, Ilana. Now, last thing here, just in-house marketing manager. Now, hey, I might be a little biased. I think that you guys should have an in-house marketing manager at your dealership. And once again, the same vocal people. Also, I think just released an article about having an in-house marketing manager and that it's time. For me, just from this perspective, sitting here on the dealer side, although I do not manage everything, I will say that you rely on vendor partners to do a lot of that heavy lifting for you. I think having someone like myself or a marketing manager in a position enables direction, right? Or so you can see holistically what's going on. You essentially are providing your vendor partners with guidance on what's going on at your specific dealerships, what's going on in the market, your goals, what you're seeing with results, what you're seeing at the specific dealerships, like floor traffic, phone calls, texts, all those things, what's happening. You're providing the connection between the experience at the dealership and the website and what's happening online with the results that we're seeing on the marketing side of things. So I think it's exceptionally important to have someone who's in-house to kind of manage that. What are your thoughts, guys?
Matt, go ahead.
Don't all jump at once.
All right, I'll go first. I'll let her go. She's the guest. But listen, I'm on I prefer to work with clients that have in-house marketing managers, and I'll tell you the reason. I don't think one replaces the other. Unless the in-house marketing manager is like manually doing the SEM, doing the SEO, doing the Facebook advertising, running the digital retailing tool,
right,
handling the chats, buying the radio. Like you can't do it all, right? Too much. So I like the in-house marketing person, and not because I was one, but because I think we speak the same language. I think that the agency folks speak the language. Like I like talking to you, Colin, even though you don't let me get a word in edgewise. I like talking to you on the phone. I like having conversations with Matt Lasher. I have a client who is part of a group, and they have a marketing director, and I love chatting with him because we talk the same language, and they'll let you know right away, here's the expectations that I have at my stores. And I like talking to general managers, executive managers, and owners too, but marketing people, we all speak the same language. So I like stores and groups that have an in-house marketing person, and I think it's important because you can't get a full picture of what's going on at the dealership unless you're in the dealership.
Ilana?
I agree. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we've seen, at least with our clients, some people that we've worked with, is when a GM who has so much on his plate and marketing is not his expertise is now in charge of marketing, or a high-performing internet manager that was able to close a lot of a lot of appointments, which has nothing to do with marketing. It was promoted because of their performance. That those are, I think, leadership and management mistakes that can really hurt a dealership's marketing department and marketing performance. And I completely agree. I think having someone, you have someone in there for sales, you have someone in there for F&I, you got to have someone in there for marketing, especially today, because digital marketing is probably, most of the budget within the marketing department. So I think it really has to be someone who's handling the relationships, like you mentioned, Colin, the data, which I think is the most important. And if the industry can't streamline the metrics, then at least you as a marketing manager can streamline it and have control of your data.
I think that that's a really good point. And, let's just reiterate that if we're never going to have 100% streamlining of the metrics, at least a marketing manager in-house would be able to work with vendor partners or, the advertising agency to at least translate all of that data to some form of streamlined metric within the dealership, right? So then it all makes sense to a general manager, and then the general manager or dealer principal or whoever it may be, general sales manager, can understand where the ad dollars are going and the return on the advertising spend that they're getting. So after that, you say, so let's get to work, friends. So I say, let's all get to work. We're going to put together that council. So you got to talk to Drew, because I guess Drew is going to be the guy, Matt, that, came up with the idea. So he can come up with the name. But Ilana, thank you so very much for being on. As always, it's a pleasure. Love the energy. Love the content. Keep doing a great job. We'll have you back on. Obviously, we'd love to have you back on the show. And for all of you out there, you have an event coming up. So let me just preface this with this, what I'm about to say. So this event is happening after this recording date here, but for Ilana, the event, you can tell us about it. You're going to say, though, that people can reach out to you, right, to get access to the event. So why don't you just explain that, and I'll just stop talking.
Sure. So yes, AutoLeadStar will be co-hosting a webinar with Google, and we're going to be talking about I'm very excited. It's with Angie. She's a U.S. auto retail specialist. Yeah. She's super impressive. I'm really honored to be on a webinar with her. Even I can't imagine what that's going to be like, but it will be really.
She's awesome. I've had the pleasure of seeing Angie speak in person. We're actually even Facebook friends, but I absolutely adore Angie. I know, right? I adore Angie. She's awesome. Really, really eloquent. I think you guys are going to be like perfect together. So yeah. So when is that though? That's June.
It's June 3rd at 11 a.m. Eastern. We will probably do a second one as a follow-up because we are getting a lot of traction, which is great.
Awesome.
We're going to be talking about the changes in consumer trends in auto buying. So, and Google has so much research and so much data on this. So I'm really excited to actually be able to share that and show and educate on that because it's real, meaning we really have to adopt our technology and our way of business, basically,
Yes.
based on these consumer trends. So she's going to talk about that, and then we'll go into how dealerships can change to match these trends and what they can be doing to stay.
That's fascinating. So where can people, I had to register. So where can people register for that? Should they reach out to you? Because in real time, we can actually change the captions here. So I don't know if you want to plug your email, or we can literally get people emailing you. Hey, I want to be on this thing. I want to be, I want to listen
for sure.
in.
Email Ilana at AutoLeadStar.com. ILANA.
Matt, you got that?
I'm trying.
Hurry up, Matt. Chop, chop. But yes,
Ilana
now
at AutoLeadStar.com, and I will send the registration to you. And if someone's watching this or listening to this post the event, reach out to me and I'll send you a recording.
If someone's watching or listening, please. I got tons of people that watch and listen to this, Ilana. There you go, guys. So that's smooth. All right, guys. So that's Ilana. You see it down there. And for our listeners, it's ILANA at AutoLeadStar, AutoLeadStar.com. You can email her. Do you want a specific subject? Google webinar?
It doesn't matter.
Just say hello to Ilana. There you guys go.
Hi.
And obviously, we know that you love to talk about anything marketing. So everyone, that is Ilana Shabtay, Director of Marketing at AutoLeadStar, host of the Inside Auto Podcast, expert panelist member at Dealer Marketing, and just all around good person. So thank you very much for joining us. Really, really great conversation. Thank you, Ilana.
It was a pleasure, as always. Thank you so much.
All right. See ya. All right, Matt. Man, I love having these conversations. So good.
I like the council idea. Let's do it.
I do too. I can't really take credit for that though. So Drew, tell Drew that now he's got 3 other people who are like chomping at the bit here to be on this council. I think that's a great idea.
Let's start it up. Drew Delaware. He's the CMO at Goobagoo.
Oh, Drew Delaware. I said Drew Olson before. Sorry, Drew.
Drew Olson.
I don't know. Some guy I went to college with, I guess.
All right. Well, good for him.
Anyway, shout out Drew Delaware and shout out Drew Olson, wherever you may be in the world. Hey, like and follow us on Facebook. Also find us on YouTube. You can type in our respective podcasts, and we're everywhere that you want to listen to podcasts, right? Just plop us in on your drive to work, or on your drive home for work, or on your train ride, or while you're working out at the gym. Although I don't know why you'd want to listen to us while you're working out at the gym. And anyway, that's Experimarketing episode 22. Houston, we have some problems. Matt Wilson and I out. Oh.